regarding their needs in pursuit of a product that is as individualized as possible. Transparent customizers provide individual customers with unique goods or services that appeal very directly to the preferences of individual consumers without letting them know explicitly that those products and services have been customized for them. Two important types of tools for these organizations are content management tools and configuration tools. Content management tools create content, collaborate across organizations and databases to standardize information from a variety of sources, update and edit this information in real time, and automate and individualize the delivery of this content to customers. Configuration tools are rules-based software systems that enable a customer to build a product according to his or her own content preferences, but within producer rules. Dell utilizes both content management and configuration capabilities to develop and sustain a competitive advantage. Dell enables both online and offline customers to build customized computers based on their own preferences. Given the number of options available, consumers can create an almost infinite number of combinations and thus types of computers. Because some of these options either cannot function together or will not function well together, business rules are needed to guide the customers through the selection process. Dell also employs content management tools to ensure the specifications are always up to date and customers can sift through product information more efficiently, ultimately allowing them to make a more educated buying decision. Other, more traditional industries, such as retail and education, also can leverage the capabilities that configuration tools and content management tools offer to provide a greater value proposition to customers. In the new economy organization, the fundamental task of senior leadership is still to ensure that their business model, people, and technologies are focused on creating value for their customers. You do not have to implement a complete and elaborate model at once. You can start the process today by making one small improvement in customer service as the start of a journey down the road to competitive advantage. Thank you.
We will now continue with the second question and answer session. We have our first question from Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. Go ahead.
Maria Bisonó from the Catholic University from Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. We would like to clarify the management of content in a world where there is so much information, overload of information, because information that is based on sharing information. But there is every day there's more and more information, and that limits cooperation amongst groups or between groups. And in this same direction, we have the concern, what do you suggest for us to distribute time? How to distribute time? How do you time management, where you have to plan and manage, but at the same time you have to keep up with the technological context that we continue to get. So we have multitasking. And so we have our current task or regular task, and then we have our electronic tasks from the virtual group. So how do we manage time?
Well, I think I can try to answer that. First of all, you don't have to do everything. We long ago learned division of labor, and we want to give the electronic tasks to people that will focus on electronics and the technology. It changes too rapidly for everyone to keep up with it. But you want to guide them so that they're doing that so it creates value for your customers or for your job. Some of the content management tools we are using now, or some of the companies are using, there's a variety of packages out there. We'll sort through all that information to pull out the information and the trends that are relevant to what you're looking for. But I think the key there is to divide up the tasks so you don't, each person doesn't feel they have to do everything personally, but can rely on members of the team to provide the different functions.
Another one other thing too, a very simple thing I'm sure you've thought about in terms of time management. Sometimes we get very caught up with the speed of the technology, the ability to transmit, that we interrupt our normal business on every 5 minutes, every hour, checking in with the various messages we're receiving. Sometimes you may find it necessary to leave it to a specific, set aside a half an hour in the morning and a half an hour in the evening so you're not continually being interrupted or interrupting yourself, your regular business with the electronic business.
Great. Next question is from Sinaloa, Mexico. Go ahead, please.
Greetings from the University of Occidente, Los Mochis, Sinaloa, Mexico. The question is, what are the negative effects that the automatization can have on industry as far as labor?
Is there any problem?
Well, there's probably a shifting in labor. What happened when computers were introduced and when PCs were introduced is the types of jobs that were performed changed. The clerical accounts receivable clerk, when mainframe computers were introduced, that job was reduced or went away, but it was replaced by systems analysts and computer programmers. And so I don't think it is a thing that it necessarily replaces labor, but it may shift the way labor does its job.
So we need retraining.
Definitely, retraining and developing.
Next question is from Dominican Republic. Again, go ahead, please.
Greetings from Codetel, from Dominican Republic. Our question is, how can we integrate the attention given to the electronic media, and how do we not distract the managers from taking care of the employees and the human resources as opposed to taking care of technology? They seem to want to focus and put the money into technology instead of human beings.
Yes, we're familiar with that phenomenon too here. I don't know if there's a sure way to prove that to them or change that, but it's going to take the human element still to deliver, still to understand what the customers are going to want. And there are times when the customers are going to want to talk to a person, not a machine. We know that definitely. There are systems, the configuration systems, content management systems that will screen calls as they come in to best direct that. Given this customer, what is it likely that they're calling? What have they called in the past? What is the nature of the question? To direct that within a nanosecond to the person most likely to be able to help them. And also come up on the screen what they might want to buy, even though that might not have been their intent. But I think as managers have become more experienced with this, they're learning that it takes the people touch.
Exactly. Isn't it also true that machines without people can't do anything by themselves?
Oh, certainly.
I think managers and administrators often in love with technology because all they see are cost saving, cost saving, cost saving. And I think we are in a time when there is such new technology that there is a lot of interest and investment in it, but we haven't really developed to that point where we have really developed the human side of the technology. So I think that will come, But right now, we're just in the midst of tremendous technology development.
True. We go to Mexico for our next question. Go ahead, please.
Bueno. Bueno. Sí, estoy hablando de la Universidad
I'm
de
calling you from Tecámac University from Mexico. Greetings to
Mi
you.
pregunta es que si
My question is, when we get first-generation products out for feedback, wouldn't this create a negative image on the same product, on the product itself? I'm not sure that the question is that clear.
I think I understand.
Creo entender
Yes.
su pregunta.
I think I understand your question. If the product you take out is too early and too flawed, that can cause problems. But even if the product has a very good idea, Motorola, when they first began testing pagers in a hospital, they gave them to the doctors, and the doctors had all kinds of complaints. And then they tried to get the doctors to give them back the pagers, and they wouldn't. So they knew they were onto something there. But if it really doesn't work at all, the frustration can pile up too much. That's a danger. But generally, it is better to get a usable, functional product out there and then get the feedback before waiting until everything is perfected, because you're still going to need that feedback of whether the customer really likes this product.
In servicing the internet and internet e-commerce, that can be particularly risky with incredibly the large amount of competition online for being if a site does not function relatively well from the beginning, you may lose the customer. Period. They'll go to a site that does function well. So there is a risk if you're doing e-commerce in terms of having your technology work and work pretty flawlessly from the beginning.
Our next question was faxed in from Asunción, Paraguay. I will read the question to you. I understand that trust must be established in a virtual team, but how do we legally give meaning to signatures that are used in virtual agreements?
I think that technology is being developed of ways. There are certain cases where it's begun to be acceptable.
Virtual signatures.
I think it's more of a political or a legal problem than a technical problem. Some documents now we are accepted by virtue of an email basis, some type of signature. Some documents you won't be accepted. I think it's more of a legal problem than a technical problem.
Correct. We go to Mexico for our next question. Go ahead, please.
Greetings to all of this wonderful network and its participants. More than a question, I'd like to make a comment with regard to the use of technology. We have to be aware that technology is a double-edged sword. If you use it adequately, then it will be a great way to enlighten our lives. But if it's badly used, if you use it with ignorance, then it can really complicate our lives. I think that in this regard, when we create networks, the key element is in the credibility of the information that is flowing through these big networks. And if we are aware of that, I think then it is very important, perhaps, for us to focus on the culture of using this technology that becomes a reality.
Any comments on that?
I think your comment is well stated, and frankly, I am glad to hear those kind of comments. I think that we have had a love affair, frankly, with technology, and have not really focused on, as you suggested, the culture, or as I look at also the human aspects, that Dr. Rhyne mentioned. I think that as we mature, we will get beyond this love affair with technology and recognize it as an extremely helpful tool, but nonetheless just a tool, secondary to the importance of the information, the quality of the information, as you suggest, and also the people who are generating it.
All right. Any comments on that?
Well, in the early days of the internet, it had its own culture, which was open and sharing and free. has, and very much they would tend to punish people that didn't adhere to that. And I guess as it develops, that has been toned down a bit.
That's true. Next question is Faxtin from Sao Paulo, Brazil. How do we motivate human relations when, if we don't work face to face? What will happen to human race?
Well, I think the I was at the Academy of International Business meeting. We were discussing the impact of the internet on international and so forth, and some people were saying nothing had changed, it was just a difference. However, I have a teenage son, and as they would interact on the internet, as he would communicate with his girlfriend on the internet or meet girls, certainly this was a different thing, but it seemed to be that there was a meeting afterwards too. It wasn't just in space.
All right, great. Next question is from Panama. Go ahead, please.
Sí, buenas tardes. Hablamos de la Universidad Tecnológica de Panamá.
The Technological University of Panama, Panama City. The question is the following. If we were to choose only 3 words to define the basic tenets or the basic principles to create a successful company or business, what would these 3 magic words be?
Relationships, connectivity, in terms of new economy, relationships, connectivity. Dr. Rhyne, you want to throw in another?
I would say customers and employees.
Yeah, I think that's important.
All right, we go to Mexico City for our next question. Go ahead, please.
Sí, gracias. Buenos días.
Good morning. This greetings from the ESCA Santo Tomas in Mexico. What do you advise, what do you recommend enterprises and universities for them to create a culture that will enable the creation of virtual teams?
I think there has to be a lot of support from the administration and a lot of reinforcement and motivation, because I think typically in universities and in other organizations, but particularly in universities, you typically have a small cadre of people who are very interested in technology and the development of online education and administration online and so on. And I think this group has to be nurtured. They have to be given the reinforcement and the supplies, the technology that they need. And I think that as they do this, it will become more attractive to the larger community. But I think you have to kind of nurture this. If you're really interested in developing, I think you have to nurture this small cadre of individuals.
If I could just interject there. A few years ago when we were first getting email, most of us, the faculty, just kind of ignored it, weren't paying much attention to it. But the dean began sending out messages on the email, and so it would often say, "Did you get my email message?" And you discovered that there was an important message on that email. So we quickly began to use it and check it. I think something like that from the top people if they're using this technology, can help it be adopted.
Ensenada, Baja California is our next stop. Go ahead, please.
What type of benefits can you bring to a micro company, a small business? How can the small business benefit from these technologies?
Well, certainly one of the things is to find out where there are access or suppliers of the products that you're looking for. Certainly those searches can be done very quickly with a very low cost, and for a small business they can make that connection. Also, if they have a specialized product or a product that can be sent by mail, posting that on the internet certainly is one way of picking up marginal sales.
I think if they can one of the advantages a small business has that they can, as Dr. Rhyne suggested, start out relatively rapidly with relatively little expense, and gain access to a large virtual community. If they can discover their niche online, for instance, in an e-commerce basis, they can gain access very quickly to a tremendous audience that was impossible not too long ago.
And Veracruz, Mexico, go ahead, please.
Okay. La pregunta es, ¿cómo podría medirse
The question is, how could you measure, or how could you measure the impact of adoption of technology on an institution? How do you measure the impact of technology in an institution?
Often, well, there are a couple things we could look at. I think one would be if you could identify your increase in revenues or increase in sales, perhaps increase in inquiries for information from a university. How quickly was an order filled from the time it was received and shipped? Of course, we're looking both for the increase in revenue and the increase in costs. So depending on the applications, there are a lot of different things we might look at, including how fast we've developed new products, from the conception to the actual commercialization and rollout.
In terms of e-commerce also, you have to be aware that we are finding that when a university, for instance, starts offering courses online, what often happens is a dip in land-based, classroom-based enrollment as some of those students migrate over to online. And similarly, in a business like Walmart may see a drop in their store sales as people buy product online. And then that begins to hopefully that begins to level off. So the initial short-term feedback may be equal or not very positive, but the longer-term picture will see a rise in both, as both feed each other, as the online presence improves the popularity of the product, the store, the institution, and the reverse happens. But initially, you may see some dip in the traditional land-based operation.
We have another question from Brazil, and the question is that in the past few days we have heard that all the .com companies, all the internet companies are failing. What are we doing there? Where are we
What
at?
aren't we doing? What aren't we doing? Well, there certainly have been some highly publicized failures of internet companies, but the actual number of people that has been laid off in these has been relatively small. But there certainly has been a scaling back in expectations, in the NASDAQ being down about 60% from a year ago in its high. Merrill Lynch recently reduced its forecast of how much retail sales volume would actually wind up on the internet, reduced it to 5 to 10% from 10 to 15%. So people are looking to say this is not happening as fast as we expected it to. However, the U.S. Census Bureau reported that sales on the internet were up 67% last year.
If I could add to there's no question we have just gone through a period of wild speculation, and now we're in a period of disenchantment with the industry. But I think we have to look at, the only model we have is history, and I think we have to look at it historically. And I think if you look at the automobile industry, petroleum, airlines, telephone, any new innovations, it followed exactly this pattern of wild speculation, disenchantment, and then moving back to a market niche. I'll give you an example. It's something I thought about. The railroads in the United States. In the 1880s, we built 70,000 miles of railroad. Within 10 years, 40,000 were bankrupt, were defunct. Over half the rail lines we built were no longer necessary. So, but the point is not that there was a mistake made. In fact, the remaining railroad fueled the industrialization of this country, the movement of goods and product and so on, people. So I think that's the kind of cycle we're seeing. We will see a natural leveling effect in the high-tech industry, in which the truly value-added products, technology will remain and will be stable.
Good. Mexico, go ahead with your question, please.
We're calling from SECAP, from the Federal Commission of Electricity in Mexico. We would like to you to explain a little bit more. What are some of the abuses to the concept of virtual concepts? You know, in what way are we abusing that virtual concept?
I might start on that. The idea of the virtual organization, as it was put forth, was a very flexible organization where people would come together, work on teams, work on projects, then disband and reorganize into other projects and teams, but a very flexible, people-friendly, supportive organization. I think the abuse of people have looked at that and said, well, a virtual organization is we don't have anybody in here. We don't do anything. We just lay off people and downsize, and somebody else will do all the work for us. And we'll just kind of manage that those external supplier relationships, and that really doesn't work very well.
So we go back to the situation where the people count.
Exactly. I think that's, from my point of view, too, that's where the abuse has been, Dr. Saba, is that from a management or administrative point of view, providing 90% investment in technology and support of technology and only 10% in the investment in the people. So I think that has been an abuse of the technology and the people. As we balance that out and invest more in motivating, supporting, training, sustaining people in virtual teams, I think that those abuses will fall off. But I think you have to agree that I have to agree there have been that.
Very good. All right. Any follow-ups as far as these comments are concerned? All right. Well, thank you for your excellent questions, but we have run out of time. We hope that you have enjoyed participating once again in this exciting multilingual and multinational program. We invite you to participate in our 4th video conference of this year's series, which will air on May 3, 2001, entitled Leadership by Thinking Out of the Box, Expanding Our Effective Perception. For additional information on this year's video conference series, please consult your participants manual, where you will find the dates and specific topics for each program. You may also visit our websites intectra.com, onlinecompetence.com, and distance-educatorinternational.com. On behalf of all of us who collaborate with the International Training Center, I thank you for your enthusiastic participation and interest in today's program. Thanks, and see you again soon.